Daniel Shepherd, Deputy British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Dr. Anna Paolini, Director, UNESCO Caribbean, the PAJ President, Milton Walker, Dr. Gunjan Mansingh, Head of Department, Computing at the UWI Mona, Adrian Dunkley, Founder, Star Apple AI, Al Edwards, the CEO of Our Today, and Jovan Johnson, Senior Staff Reporter at The Gleaner and Treasurer of the Press Association of Jamaica, and everyone else who has made the time to come here. Good evening. We are here for the World Press Freedom Day Forum 2023. This one is being held under the theme, Artificial Intelligence, a Threat to Journalism. I'll go further to recast the topic as the growing impact of generative AI tools in the journalism landscape. My name is George Davis. I am a director of the Press Association of Jamaica, the immediate past president, and I'm very, very happy to be here to talk about a matter that will change the way journalists work forever. The format of today's proceedings, so what will happen is that I'll make my opening remarks, which I'm into now. I'll invite the PAJ President, the Deputy British High Commissioner, and of course, Dr. Paolini to make opening remarks. Then we'll have a short video presentation, and then we'll go to the main panel on the stage, Dr. Mansingh, Al Edwards, Adrian Dunkley, Jovan Johnson, to really get into the topic, and then we'll allow interaction from the audience. So why are we here? We all know why we are here. AI has taken a quantum leap forward, and it has now gone sufficiently forward to cause worry, strife in many quarters, but optimism in other quarters. Now, my first consideration of AI came in 2001. For those of you who are movie buffs, you'll remember that in 2001, there was a movie directed by Steven Spielberg called AI, Artificial Intelligence, with the, I'm looking at the DVD cover now, a rather odd-looking boy looking up at I don't know what. So AI. Now, AI, the script for that movie came from a book, a short story rather, published in 1969 called Super Toys Last All Summer Long by Brian Adlis. And the script was given to Stanley Kubrick. For those, again, who are movie buffs, you'll know Stanley Kubrick was the man responsible for the oddest movie I've ever watched, 2001, A Space Odyssey, yeah, where it was machine and one person, and it was nerve-wracking just to watch that, yeah? So he got the script originally, but he couldn't develop the movie the way he wanted to. And why? Kubrick felt that the person to play David in AI, he felt that the computer-generated imagery that was available at the time in about 1995, that it wasn't advanced enough to really capture the essence of David. David, of course, the main character in AI was a boy who had the ability to love, yeah? Feel human emotions. So Kubrick felt that about 1995, CGI wasn't advanced enough. He felt that the best thing to do for David was to create an AI boy. But I'll come to that in short order, because the question you have to ask, or we have to ask ourselves, when did news organizations start using AI? That can be traced to the Associated Press in 2014. They said that their foray into AI began when their business news desk began automating stories about corporate earnings. Prior to using AI, news editors at the AP and reporters spent countless resources, in the AP's words, on coverage that was important but repetitive, and more importantly, distracted from higher journalism. It was this project, they said, that enabled the AP to experiment with new projects and, in their words, establish leadership as more news organizations looked to adopt the technology themselves. We remember not so long ago, 2018, China's Xinhua News Agency debuting a male news anchor who was totally AI. And of course, earlier this year, they debuted the female version of that 2018 news anchor. Now, the advancement of AI, I believe, prompts a few crucial questions for journalists, those who own media houses, or those who run news organizations, the consumers of journalism, those three groups especially. And there are specific questions to ask each group. For journalists, I think at this time, the most important question to ask of journalists is this: can journalists use AI ethically? I think that's a major, major question that I hope we can answer today. The question for media owners is this: what's your plan for the responsible integration of AI in the journalism produced by your organization? I think that's one of, if not at this time, the most important question for media houses, media bosses. And then for the consumers of journalism, I think the most important question at this time is, how important is it to you that a human writes the news that you read? The panelists today will be going through their presentations, and of course, I'm banking on them touching certain points. I have a list here of some points I expect to be touched. If not, I'll prompt questions along those lines. I just want to tell you one last thing, that there was an ad placed online on April 21 this year by NewsQuest. NewsQuest, the Deputy High Commissioner, I'm sure they're familiar with NewsQuest. NewsQuest owns about 27 titles in the UK, newspapers in Hereford, Watford, and several other places. NewsQuest put an ad, published an ad, April 21 this year, seeking an AI-powered reporter to, quote, join our team and help us expand our use of AI technology in the newsroom. The ad said the successful candidate will be at the forefront of a new era in journalism, using AI technology to create national, local, and hyperlocal content for our news brands, while also applying their traditional journalism skills. It noted that this is an exciting opportunity for someone who's passionate about journalism and the potential for AI to transform the way we produce and consume news without losing sight of the importance of quality reporting and writing. And then they list what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 key responsibilities. Well, 9 and about 14 key responsibilities that AI reporter is supposed to have. And the employment type, permanent. So they want this member to be a permanent member of staff at a remuneration of £22,000 sterling, which, I mean, it's not a straight comparison. We all know the cost of living there is different from here, but just for us to understand what we're talking about, £22,000 sterling based on the BOJ's latest rate, 185, it works out to about 40 million Jamaican dollars. So they have set their stall out, NewsQuest, for an AI reporter. I remind you that NewsQuest apart, Men's Journal, CNET, they have used AI to write articles about health and personal finances, although those entities have been hit with complaints from readers that there are several inaccuracies in the reports generated by AI. And then BuzzFeed, it announced that it was using AI to enhance its quizzes online that are very popular, the crossword puzzles and everything else. And that the AI assistant created by BuzzFeed has already produced 40 odd travel guides, although one critic of travel guide writing noted that those articles in the main, those guides in the main, those 40 odd travel guides in the main were, quote, incredibly hackneyed. That is just to set the background for AI and journalism and to open the way for panelists to contribute today. So again, the format, we're going to hear 3 opening remarks, then a short video, and then we'll go to the panel for their remarks and then for them to get into the issue. So may I invite the PHA President, Milton Walker, to open the innings.
Thank you very much, George. Deputy British High Commissioner Daniel Shepherd, Director of UNESCO Caribbean, Dr. Anna Paolini, our distinguished panel, Dr. Gunjan Mansingh, Adrian Dunkley, Jovan Johnson, and Al Edwards, representatives of our sponsors, VMBS, the British High Commission, our host and sponsor, the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome also to our viewers on our YouTube page, which is streaming live. Today is World Press Freedom Day, and we had, long before the ratings came out, decided that we were going to do AI, is it a threat to journalism? Today, as we mark this important occasion, it's essential for us to reflect on the current state of press freedom in Jamaica and the Caribbean, and indeed its implications for journalists around the world. We woke up this morning to news that Jamaica has registered a significant drop in the World Press Freedom Index, moving from 12 to 32. The Press Association isn't quite sure what the reasons are for the fall. Although we must be concerned, we don't think there's a reason to be unduly alarmed. We can testify that the structural environment remains the same. No new oppressive legislation or threats to journalists in this country. But there are still challenges which we must work to overcome. It's important to note that Jamaica is among the 30% of countries where conditions for practicing journalism are satisfactory, according to Reporters Without Borders. We will be examining the report and methods more closely than we've been able to do so far. We mustn't forget that last November, a correspondent for Television Jamaica and a Gleaner reporter were attacked by a thug while covering a protest in Homestead in Spanish Town. He damaged the camera and attempted to seize the mobile phone of the reporter. He was arrested and charged, but was subsequently murdered in Clarendon in January. Today, we must also acknowledge our colleagues in neighboring Haiti, where four journalists have been killed so far this year, with the most being Rico Jean, who worked for Radio Télé Télévision Inter last Tuesday. This appalling situation highlights the dangers that journalists face in parts of the world, including in our own backyard. We offer condolences to the families of those who have lost their lives in the pursuit of the truth. Similarly, in Guyana, another CARICOM state, journalists are subject to intimidation and cyberbullying by supporters of the ruling party. This is a concerning situation that has no place in a democratic society. Journalists must be free to report on issues of public interest without fear of reprisals or intimidation. Now, as we consider the role of AI in journalism, it's important to recognize that while it can bring many benefits, it also poses significant threats to journalists. For example, AI-generated deepfakes can be used to spread misinformation and manipulate public opinion. Additionally, AI-powered tools can be used to track and monitor journalists, impersonating reporters and thereby compromising their safety and the confidentiality of their sources. Therefore, as we move forward, we must work together to ensure that AI is used in a responsible and ethical manner. Journalists must be aware of the potential risks associated with AI and be equipped with the necessary skills to navigate this new terrain. It's also critical that governments and other stakeholders take action to protect journalists and to uphold press freedom, both online and offline. In conclusion, on this World Press Freedom Day, let us recommit ourselves to the fundamental principles of press freedom and the protection of journalists. We must stand in solidarity with our colleagues around the world who are facing persecution and work together to ensure that AI is used to enhance rather than undermine the critical role of journalism in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Milton. May I invite Daniel Shepherd, Deputy British High Commissioner to Jamaica.
Thank you, George. President of the Press Association of Jamaica, Mr. Milton Walker, Dr. Anna Paolini, Director, UNESCO Caribbean, George and distinguished panel members, good evening. It's great to be here today as we commemorate World Press Freedom Day 2023. The world of journalism is changing rapidly with the digital age and social media influencing the way that journalists do their jobs. One major change in recent years has been an increased reliance on artificial intelligence to cover stories, gather information, and distribute it to audiences. Artificial power is growing so fast that some experts predict AI will be doing all the tasks associated with journalism by 2040 or 2050. Now, for transparency, what I just said in my opening remarks was produced by an AI tool, which was given specific parameters to follow. I've no idea if where the 2040 or 2050 figure date comes from, but yeah, it just goes to show how powerful AI tools can be, that you can make those remarks and nobody bats an eyelid. It's just another diplomat speaking. Anyway, now on to the part that my hard-working team and I put together ourselves. I am conscious that there are concerns about how the development of AI will affect press freedom in Jamaica and even worldwide. Though I can't speak to how it will be used, I can be confident, I think, that it is here to stay. And there are clearly benefits of this development for journalists worldwide. AI can increase journalistic productivity by automating mundane tasks, as George mentioned, such as collecting data or formatting stories. And once the technology is developed further, it will likely be a welcome addition that affords journalists more time to focus on their most important jobs, finding facts and writing captivating copy, especially in an age when news is practically instantaneous and commentary increasingly provides the unique journalistic voice behind the factual reporting. However, there are also risks. Just like we have worried in recent years about how social media usage is developing and how we've seen it used and misused, AI brings a new set of concerns. For all our flaws as humans, I feel that we're still able to apply a complex lens of analysis to what we do, even if we don't always make the soundest judgments ourselves. We're not at a position where algorithms have the emotional intelligence of human beings, and I suppose that's a debate as to how close they can ever get to that. And so journalists must remain skeptical, questioning of what they uncover in their investigations, and especially from online sources. I have another confession to make. That wasn't actually the first time I've investigated how a chatbot could help me write a speech. When I tested AI on this other topic where I was giving another diplomatic speech, it produced some information that none of our in-house experts in the field could actually confirm and stand up. So I didn't use it, of course. I think there's a very important lesson, though, for journalists here about AI and journalism. You still have to probe. You still have to cross-check. You still need to double source. That way you can ensure that you stand behind your important investigative reports. The UK has recognized the growing development of this technology and is currently taking steps to ensure its effective and safe use. Just last week, my Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, announced an AI task force with an initial £100 million to kickstart the delivery of the UK's ambition for safe and reliable foundation models. The task force, modelled on the success of the COVID-19 vaccines task force, will develop the safe and reliable use of AI across the economy and ensure that the UK is globally competitive in this strategic technology. Outside of AI, media freedom is under threat both offline and online. According to UNESCO, I hope Dr. Paolini doesn't mind me quoting her, over 80 journalists or media workers were killed in 2022, and in some countries, journalists are held in detention in connection with their work. It's for reasons such as these, the importance of press freedom in Jamaica, as in any country, cannot be overstated. A free press serves as a watchdog, holding those in power to account, providing a forum for diverse and divergent voices and perspectives. According to Reporters Without Borders, over the last few decades, freedom of the press has continued to be strong and even improved in Jamaica, and the right to information is widely respected. And Jamaica has had a long and strong tradition of press freedom with a diverse range of media outlets and a legal framework that protects the right to free expression. So I have to say, just a little surprised to see the World Press Freedom Rankings when they were released earlier today, and Jamaica overall ranking on the index declining by 20 places to 32 out of the 180 countries assessed, so down from the ranking of 12 last year. That said, it's a very respectable ranking in global terms, and if you read Reporters Without Borders' narrative report about the media freedom situation in Jamaica, it does remain very positive, showing that the fundamentals behind the previous higher rankings, whether that's in media landscape or the legal environment or the political context, have not changed. And it's for that reason that I remain hopeful and confident in the ability of Jamaica's journalists to continue to play a crucial role in informing citizens about issues that affect their lives, in promoting transparency and accountability, and in facilitating public debate and dialogue. These important principles are also reflected in the Commonwealth Media Principles, adopted at a meeting of Commonwealth law ministers last year, and based on the outcome of a working group, which was chaired by a very talented young Jamaican official, I should say, to promote responsible and ethical journalism. The principles emphasize the importance of press freedom, accuracy, impartiality, and accountability, among other key values. In the case of Jamaica, and as a member of the Commonwealth, the press continues to play its part in ensuring government commitments to uphold the values of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. So the UK is delighted to work not only with Jamaica, but across the Caribbean region to help promote press freedom. As partners with the Media Institute of the Caribbean, MIC, we have supported Caribbean-wide initiatives aimed at building capacities of journalists and promoting an essential pillar of modern democracy, a vibrant free press. This includes current work on strengthening access to information, which I know that many of you are involved with here. So kudos to the Press Association of Jamaica for leading on vital initiatives such as this public forum. I look forward to the discussions this evening and to continuing our vital work in support of a free and vibrant press. Thank you.
And as Daniel finds his seat, may I thank the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, the British High Commission, the VM Group, and the United Nations for sponsoring the event this evening. Thank you very much on behalf of the PAJ. Dr. Anna Paolini, Director, UNESCO Caribbean. The floor is yours, miss.
Thank you, Mr. George. It's okay. Okay. Mr. Milton Walker, the President of the Press Association of Jamaica, Mr. Daniel Shepherd, Deputy British High Commissioner of Jamaica, our distinguished panelists, distinguished attendees, ladies and gentlemen also online, a very good afternoon to you. On behalf of the UN in Jamaica, it is really my pleasure to offer today the opening remarks for the celebration marking the 30th anniversary of the World Press Freedom Day. The United Nations in Jamaica welcomes this opportunity to expand our long-lasting relationship, and we extend our appreciation and congratulations to the Press Association of Jamaica for organizing today's panel discussion. A happy World Press Freedom Day to all of you. In existence since 1943, the Press Association of Jamaica holds the distinction of being the oldest press body in the Commonwealth Caribbean. The Press Association of Jamaica is an organization experienced in navigating the contours of changes. Therefore, this forum is really well placed to explore the impact of artificial intelligence on journalism. Knowledge, innovation, and creativity are today the key drivers of value creation. This value takes many forms: social, cultural, political, military, and economic, among others. The quality of the information driving knowledge creation, innovation, creativity, and decision-making, whether individually all collectively. It determines our ability to create a peaceful, inclusive, and sustainable society. This is why UNESCO recognizes information as a public good, to which everyone is entitled. Information is both a means and a hand for fulfilling collective human aspiration, like the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal. Journalists have a key role in producing and disseminating public interest information. Through the information they provide, journalists stimulate public debate, accountability, transparency, and meaningful participation in societal decision-making, the cornerstone of a democratic society. As Maria Ressa, journalist and 2021 Nobel Prize winner, and by the way, I should say, before becoming a Nobel Prize laureate, she got the Guillermo Cano UNESCO World Press Freedom Prize. So we were very proud when she became Nobel laureate. And I quote, and it's not artificial intelligence this time, "Without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without trust, we have no shared reality, no democracy, and it becomes impossible to deal with our world's existential problem: climate, in that case coronavirus, and the battle for truth." Clearly, journalists have an important societal role. Their work must remain free from captures or distortions. We are living in an era of unparalleled technological progress, where artificial intelligence is an integral part of daily life. Using algorithms, artificial intelligence systems process data. The outputs are value-based judgments that affect decisions across many fields. Journalists use artificial intelligence in their work to enhance news production through transcription, content curation, monitoring social media to find breaking news stories, to support fact-checking, and in writing news stories as well. They also use AI as a tool for data analysis and investigative reporting, cross-referencing, for example, and searching large document sets, and as well to better understanding their business's operation in order to reduce cost and improve efficiencies. Artificial intelligence is also creating new challenges for journalists. The rise of AI-enabled societal media platform that delivers high personalized content has disrupted traditional media business models, precipitating the closure of media houses. A shortening of the news cycle and precarious financial position of many media organizations has decreased appetite for societally vital but costly investigative journalism and reporting. The output of artificial intelligence systems depends on their training data sets, so inadequate data will produce biased outputs. This raises concern for marginalized groups in particular, when their data is not available or is not included. There is also a lack of diversity in the design and development of AI systems. For example, globally only 1 in every 5 artificial intelligence developer is a female, and even fewer of these are of African or ethnic descent. This impacts fundamental design questions such as purpose and goals. The use of artificial intelligence to produce disinformation is a threat to journalism credibility. AI-powered tool can impersonate people, the so-called deep fakes, amplifying misleading and harmful content. This poses ethical concern regarding the accuracy and the truthfulness of news stories. We are at the start of a profound digital transformation, and we heard before there is no probably a way back, only a way forward. Web 3.0, the metaverse, will offer both a closer coupling and disconnect between the digital and physical world. These technological developments are opportunities for addressing and reducing societal inequities, creating new industries, and improving access to high-quality education. But they also pose the specter of the winner-takes-all scenarios and wider gaps between haves and not haves. We are at a pivotal time. We must take action. UNESCO is fostering awareness, inclusive, multi-stakeholder debate, and advocating human rights-based principles for regulating artificial intelligence and other frontier technologies. This is reflected in the action that led in the 2021 to the adoption of the recommendation on the ethic of artificial intelligence, the first of such international instrument. The Windhoek Plus 30 Declaration, also adopted in 2021, provides principles for information as a public good. UNESCO is bolstering trustworthy journalism by advocating policies to address the financial and viability challenges facing independent journalism. The Internet for Trust conference held this year in February provides guidelines for content regulation and respect freedom of expression. Once again, in concluding, I really would like, on behalf of the UN and UNESCO, to thank the Press Association of Jamaica for the opportunity to participate in today's event and its efforts to stimulate public debate on this very critical issue. We really look forward to closer collaboration with you and other partners in the audience and like-minded partners in finding sustainable and suitable solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Paolini. All right, so we're going to take a short video presentation, and then we turn to the main panel.
Machine learning to actually make us better journalists.
Every day in journalism,
This is not a situation where robots are going to be replacing what journalists do. The bigger question is, how do we deploy machine learning to actually make us better journalists?
every day in journalism, we're doing a lot of processy, robotic tasks to make sure that we're gathering news, producing news at scale. The way in which I see a big benefit coming from AI is helping with that process.
It empowers our journalists to spend more time doing what they do best. It's interviews, research, and investigation, and writing more compelling and creative content. Those things cannot be done by AI.
At Google, we believe that AI should benefit society. This means beneficial for the news that people have access to, and the news industry who produces it.
This report is an unprecedented insight into a whole range of newsrooms around the world. It tells us what they're doing with AI right now, but it also tells us what they hope to do with it in the future.
We can use algorithms to help us find news faster and break news faster.
These days, any journalist or any reader will tell you they're completely overwhelmed with information. AI and technology can help with this process by finding relevancy.
In the production area, you're looking at what can the machines do really well, which is analyze data, pull things together, find patterns, and even do some natural language processing to write stories off the back of data.
We employ AI to provide users with more personalized experiences, while maintaining the balance of curation to minimize filter bubbles.
AI will help us to get exactly the right content to the right person. And that might be a consumer scrolling through on their mobile phone, or for Reuters it might be a business client who wants particular content at particular times of the day.
Any new technology brings all sorts of challenges to the news industry, and one as complex as AI makes that even more interesting.
Clearly there are ethical questions that need to be addressed. Things like making sure that our data is not biased, or figuring out whether we're going to disclose the uses of automation to audiences.
I feel that we're going to need to have new skills in the newsroom of people who understand technology and programming and understand the ethics of journalism.
Commonly, we have Q&A sessions on AI initiatives so that editorial has a good understanding of what we're actually building, what's feeding into it, and what the outcome is. This type of transparency within our organization is really fundamental to how we build AI.
We're all going to be living in a world where AI is ever more significant in all sorts of spheres. And I think it's really important that we understand both the powers and opportunities that it brings, but also the challenges and risks.
The more all of us work together, the more confident I am we'll discover further how AI can empower journalists.
That's why it's so important that we keep this research and this dialogue going.
All right, so we got it in. All right. Time now to hear from the head of the Department of Computing at the UWI Mona, Dr. Gunjan Mansingh.
Can I just ask you all to put the slides on? A very interesting topic that we're talking about today, isn't it? Artificial intelligence, a threat to journalism. But what we have seen so far, it doesn't seem so much like a threat, but rather something that we can work with, right? A little assistive tool for us. So let's see where it's taking us and what is it that we need to do. Because I think the last, what you saw in the video was that it said it brings more responsibilities. And what are those responsibilities for media is, I think, what we are here to even discuss today. I always like this, everyone is talking about AI, and AI has been around for a long time, but even in the field of AI, people have been unable to really define AI. So there have been traditionally, even traditionally people are trying to figure out what really is AI. Is it people like you're acting humanly or acting rationally? George was talking about the AI movie. Then if you look at the Star Trek days, Mr. Spock and thinking rationally. But when we are talking about people now, is it really thinking rationally or is it acting humanly? What are these various things? And even researchers in this field have struggled with what was AI. And then they came up with like two properties of AI, saying that if something is autonomous and if something is adaptive, then yes, it is going to be considered to be an AI system. And then from that perspective, then it's like I've told you that AI has been around for a long time, and I would really like to take you to the timeline. It's not a new kid on the block. It's been around from 1950s. You dated it only to 2001, right? Startup for you, for journalism. But it was around even 51 years before that. So that's powerful. And it's been trying to make waves, and this is on this slide is what we call the good old-fashioned AI. And yesterday we were talking about that in 1997, an AI computer even beat Garry Kasparov, the Grand Chess Master, and that time everybody started, looking at. And it was not. Now, in the video that you saw, you had two words. Some people saying machine learning, some people saying AI. And nowadays, everybody uses these two words interchangeably. So when we are talking about the world of ChatGPT and all, we are really talking about machine learning. So this was what we call the good old-fashioned AI. And then this suddenly changed in 2016 and 2017 when there was AlphaGo, which was another game, which actually used machine learning to beat the Go champion. And then 2018 is a new timeline, as I would say. That's when ChatGPT came about. So it's not even ChatGPT is not something just new. It has been there for a little while. 2 years ago, even we had used it in our little research project looking at copyright issues in creative industry. So that was a very nice seminar we had done with some lawyers and people from creative industry and people in technology. So you can create music with it, you can create art with it, and it's quite powerful. And that brings about lots of questions about really what is it that we can do with it. First of all, the capability, because so far, earlier on, we were talking about the repetitive things that AI was doing. Now, we're talking about the creative world. And as you said, that it can create content. And even in the report, they told us about it's creating AI journalists. So a little bit on where is it really taking us? You can just change the slide. So I said, let me just tell you what this world of AI and especially this machine learning for ChatGPT is. It has been trained on these following data sources. There was something that the person said earlier, saying that we create news. AI can create news. AI doesn't create news. AI is using all the data it has from these sources. This is what ChatGPT is using. It's using this Common Crawl, Twitter, your Wikipedia, all your books, journals, newspapers. We have all the media people here, Reddit. It even uses movies. It uses the captions to understand how to get the conversation part going. I found that quite interesting. So it's using that to really understand how it can communicate with people. So it's using all these kinds of data. And with all these kinds of data, what can now happen? And if we go to the next slide, we can see the things that people are now worrying about. People are worrying about journalism. And these are recent articles talking about AI journalism is getting harder to tell from the old-fashioned human-generated kind. And this is just a few days ago. And even another one which speaks about ChatGPT journalists found running almost 50 AI-generated content farms. And these are not doing so well, and I don't know where the future is going in this industry, but it's something really worth thinking about. And I really like the next slide, because this next slide is about a creative piece that I did using ChatGPT. Does that make me the author of that poetry? I would even struggle to read it properly. If I try read the patois on the screen, my sons will have fits of laughter and I don't want them to go there. But I said, give me, and you all know whose style this is written in. This is Miss Lou's poetry style. And I was able to generate that using ChatGPT. Does that make me the creative owner of this piece? I hope not, because I would struggle to read it properly with the right cultural connotations, annotations, of course. Now, this raises a question, and I had found these 3 rules of technology by this group which calls themselves the Center for Humane Technology. If we go to the next slide. And these 3 rules really remind me that we have to be mindful about what we are putting out. So if you invent a new technology, you uncover a new class of responsibilities. So do we know this new class of responsibilities that are going with this, the newest thing around, which is ChatGPT? Do we know the newer responsibilities? And that is something that is worth thinking, because I'm sure that if we look at all the rules, that if technology confers power, it starts a race. We have seen that happen before. And if we do not coordinate, the race ends in a tragedy. So that's not where we want to go. So before we reach there, we need to really have this new class of responsibilities. And if we go to the next slide, people are bigwigs in the technology industry are now asking to pause this. And they are saying there'll be no ChatGPT 5. There will be 4.5, maybe 4.555, 4.666, I don't know. But they say there will be no ChatGPT 5. So let's see where this takes us, because this is something which is very interesting, and where it's going without the responsibilities, we have to be very mindful. And on the last slide, I'm really asking, how do we use ChatGPT as a teaching/supportive tool versus a cheating or a harmful tool? So it is there. It's very much there to stay. How are we going to use it? We as a human race have always learned to evolve, right? How are we going to evolve with this technology? That's what I would like to say.
Thank you for those opening remarks, Dr. Mansingh. Thank you. Now to the founder of a company that, I don't know if any of you have seen a Star Apple email in your inbox, but the pitch is very compelling. It draws you into read, telling you all sorts of things about AI. And I find it a novel way to send an email. So many emails in your inbox, you just slide through, but Star Apple always has a way to, has a pitch to grab your attention. The founder of Star Apple AI, Adrian Dunkley, is here with us, and I invite him to make his opening remarks.
Testing. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right, thanks for coming. All right, so I'll pose a question to everybody first to start off. Let's say you had a friend that you spoke to every day for 5 years of your life. But you only spoke to them through WhatsApp or an email. You never saw them in person. But you at least spent 3 minutes a day with them, reading a text, reading a post, maybe they sent you some content to read. And then at the 3-year mark, they say, hey, I'm doing a concert. Can you pay $100 US to come to the concert? Okay? Then you go to the concert to meet them, and you realize it's an AI bot, they don't exist. How do you feel? Would you be hurt? Deceived, right? So, bit of a stretch, but we're getting to that point. So imagine a news outlet fully run by an AI who's convincing you about ethics, thinking about how you should dress, what you should listen to, what you should eat. And you don't bat an eye because you're so used to them, because you are a 13-year-old child and now you're 18. But you've already been captivated and captured by them at the point in your time where you're the most vulnerable. So I like to think about all of the AI-generated content in that way. So yes, it's concerns about ethics, it's concerns about truth, but if you think about the most vulnerable of us, which are the kids, which don't know any better, how is this going to affect them psychologically? Are they going to now be okay being a friend with something that isn't human? Because remember pet rocks? You can have a pet rock as a friend. So imagine this thing talks back to you. Right? As humans, I feel like we're very, very intelligent, but at the same time, maybe crazy, very vulnerable when it comes to emotions. And if you understand enough about us, you can manipulate us, which I think journalism is such a powerful tool for good and bad. If you go back to that, if I know, let's say 10 things about you that I can use to get you to listen to me for 3 minutes a day, why would you believe anyone else over what I'm telling you without any evidence? Are you really going to check the sources? No, you're expecting me to check the sources. So the concern to me is, as was mentioned, truth. Is there consistency with respect to truth? No. And you're now weaponizing it on a scale that's insane, because now you can create a customized message or article for 1 million persons. with enough processing power, send it out, curate it to them, and continue to refine the message. So you no longer need, let's say, 10 scammers in a room 24 hours a day. You need one really good AI engineer with enough processing power and a little bit of time, and you've basically created your own independent political party that's going to destroy Jamaica. Bit of, well, I don't know, maybe it's possible. We never know, right? Yeah, so if we're going after Gen Z and lower and all of these things, journalism can, yes, use AI very importantly, very effectively to do a better job, provide better quality, but at the same time, you still need humans involved in the process. Is there going to be a point in time where you may not need a human involved in journalism? I don't want to be around to find out, because that sounds like a very boring reality, a very boring world, because we rely on journalists to present us with not just the news and facts, but in a way that we can ingest it effectively. We rely on them to not think for us, but inspire us to think about things that we wouldn't necessarily have thought about. So who really is responsible for us thinking about the importance of toxins in our water? A journalist came to you and said, I think this is important. When you relied specifically on a machine to do that, the machine is now controlling you instead of an individual deciding this may be important to you. And the big thing is, as amazing as these tools are, it doesn't know what a human is, it doesn't know what oxygen is, it doesn't know what a limited lifespan is. It's imitating us. It's learning from us. So it's kind of like our kid, in a sense, right? It's not doing anything unique exactly. It's learning from us and trying to replicate the things that we do on a regular basis. So yes, it may be able to imitate us sometimes, or if you ask it to write a song in the style of Miss Lou, it'll kind of do it. But Miss Lou would have went through a progression. She may not have written the same way when she was older versus when she was younger. Those types of things it can't necessarily factor in right now. You need somebody to go in and tell it these things. Every step it takes involves a human getting the data, a human deciding how the data should be used, and then to some extent a human deciding if it's correct or not, right? So it's very limited right now in terms of fact checking, but we're gonna get to a point where there's a chat truth GPT that checks chat GPT for it and verifies it. We're not there yet, right? But there's definitely value involved in it, but really think about the next generation and how they're gonna interact with these tools and how easy it is for us to affect the reality with the tools. And I think that's why we definitely need human journalists involved at every step of the way. I'm not going to say every journalist is going to have a job in the next 15 years. I won't say that. But I believe this is more a push to improve the quality and their capabilities, and they can use it to be more effective and better at what they're doing. Imagine all of the crazy internet trends. I could not have predicted. I'm not sure if a human could have realized that these things would have made sense to do. So think about next generation and how you would feel if your best friend turned out to be ChatGPT. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Thought-provoking. Jovan Johnson is Senior Staff Reporter at The Gleaner, and he is the Treasurer of the Press Association of Jamaica. Jovan.
Thank you, George. Good evening, everybody. I agree with George and his earlier comment about recasting what we have as artificial intelligence a threat to journalism, because I think it sort of misdirects the conversation from how do we deploy it, and I would add, how do we deploy it responsibly and ethically. Journalism is accustomed to and thrives on technological change. We're talking about from the printing press and other kinds of technologies that come up. When I was at Carimac back in between 2009 and 12, one of the debates we had was media convergence, for example. And is print journalism going to die? Now, there are questions about the medium through which we access information, but journalism did not die. Print journalism, as we classically know it, has not died. What we have to do as journalists is to adapt to the technology, or adopt the technology using our fundamental principles as journalists. So issues of truth, issues of verification, fairness, those are critical. And once we agree that those will remain fundamental pillars of journalism and its purpose in society, then anything else that comes after that, including AI, artificial intelligence, or artificial generative intelligence, I learned a lot of things preparing for this, by the way. So there's artificial narrow intelligence and there's artificial generative intelligence. Whatever it is that comes, once the fundamental pillars remain the same, then they will just have to adopt. No, this does not downplay the ethical issues that will arise. Every technological change over time introduces problems and challenges that we have to respond to. So 20 years ago, most media companies did not have social media policies. Most media companies now do have social media policies. It's the very same thing when we talk about artificial intelligence, that the news organizations, media entities, whatever they are, that are involved in the production of content and sharing of content, will have to introduce structures to ensure that the fundamentals of journalism, as I mentioned earlier, remain, but at the same time, the technology is incorporated to streamline the process. And there are 3 ways I would love you to look at this in terms of the news-making process. News gathering. How can the technology improve our news gathering elements? A lot of my colleagues here, panelists, colleagues, and some of you know that we collect information through interviews, we search archives, whatever it is. A lot of it mundane, I can tell you that. As a practicing journalist, it can be annoying, it's very time consuming, and these kinds of rote activities can be left up to the technology, with guidance, of course. And then we go to the news production process. When we have collected the information, how do we edit it, putting it together, storyboards for video content, whatever it is, and then we go to news distribution. Those are the 3 elements that we have to look at, both as journalists and as media managers, owners of media and so on. How do we integrate artificial intelligence girded by the principles that guide journalism to ensure that we are maximizing these? We are ensuring that, well, we're in 2023, so the audience is far more segmented. They are demanding more information that satisfies their particular interests. It's of a sort of particularized information and content consumption. And news media, journalists, whomever, all of us, we have to be able to respond to that. And we can use the technology to do that. Now, some of the ethical issues I want to point out, which are very important in addressing: data bias, algorithm bias. I think Dr. Mansing spoke about the information does not come out of thin air. It comes from somewhere. The information that is generated, the question you ask in GPT, for example, it comes from somewhere. The question we have to ask ourselves is, when we put the questions in or we tailor whatever the technology is and get the information, how do we assess it to ensure that it is fair, that we are not excluding particular social groups, underrepresented groups? Because the information, the source of that particular information may be from somebody who, or an entity, or a place, or space, that did not give consideration to particular groups of people, to particular kinds of issues. But it comes from somewhere, and in it are biases, and we have to be careful to ensure that those are reduced. Disclosure issues, that's very important, and I've spoken to colleagues in Jamaica and in the Caribbean and some in parts of Europe and North America. When a question is put into, I'm using chat GPT, and you ask them to give you an essay or whatever it is you ask them, who owns the information, Dr. Mansing asked? Journalists. A lot of it comes from the work of journalists, but journalists are not paid for that information. The media organizations are not paid for that kind of information. Very important. But we don't get a reference list when we use ChatGPT. Perhaps if you ask, I don't know what, I didn't try that aspect of it. Sorry? Not trained, okay. Those are very important issues, copyright issues, I should say. The disclosure aspect relates to what extent does a media house tell its audience, its readers, viewers, whomever, that the information that is being presented to you came from automation. That's critical, because we don't know what role it may play to our audience, but we know that we're not the sole source of that information. Some media organizations include that in their disclosures. Some do not. And those issues also have to be interrogated. And of course, the issues of accuracy and verification. One thing I'll also mention before I go to one final issue, inequalities. And I know George will come to that, because he and I had a sort of a robust discussion about the issues of inequalities that are introduced when it comes to media houses and newsmaking processes. The big media houses, the small media houses. And when you look at issues of costs, finance, being able to scale up, being able to have the skill. So in one sense, we're saying it will introduce efficiencies. So the rote aspects of journalism, news gathering, whatever it is, those aspects can be dealt with. But what is the capacity of a small media house? In one sense, it may work. They're able to get the journalists to go on to major things by having the technology do the rote aspect of the work. But then what is introduced is a requirement now to go beyond what ChatGPT or whichever AI technology gives you. So if you get the basics of an earnings report, George, if you get the basics of an earnings report, you plug Grace Kennedy's earnings report into the ChatGPT and say, give us a report, and they string together something very quickly and give it to you. What's the story behind that? What are the shifts? What are the issues? Getting the analyses, the perspectives. When people get up and read the Financial Times, they already know what whichever Fortune 500 company or whichever has already released. What people want are analyses that are mixing historical information with what you are able to unearth about a particular earning. And those are important things. And to what extent can a small media entity engage with that? And then, when you tie it with big tech and the commandeering of AI skills and technologies, then how are small entities able to compete, to retain the kind of talent, to continue to build their AI technologies? That's a challenge for small media houses. Maybe major ones are able to navigate to a certain extent, but it's a challenge that has to be met. And one last thing. I did a sort of an unrepresentative poll of my colleagues, media houses in coming here. To what extent are they using AI? How is it fitting in their newsmaking processes? And remember I said the newsmaking processes, you're talking about news gathering, news production, and news distribution. And for the most part, there are discussions taking place within the newsrooms, within the management, about how these technologies can be used or incorporated or adopted to improve the workflows in media houses. I'm at the Gleaner, so maybe I can give you a little bit about what we're doing. Not very much, because right now we know that we are currently engaging in a project with aspects with our editorial department and Star Apple to see how we can use the technology. We did two things though. At Champs the other day, which is the high school track and field championships in Jamaica, our colleagues on the social media desk, integration desk, experimented with using AIs to form captions. Because the races are very quick, so you're trying to reduce your time to have to post an update and so on, and you're in a competitive environment. It wasn't perfect, but it was an effort. And I also learned that we have been using chatbots, etc., that we perhaps never considered AIs before, but are artificial intelligence technologies throughout COVID at the Gleaner, and I didn't realize that. So when you go on our website, you're able to put in and ask for basic information, and the information is generated, what's the latest statistics, the public orders that the government imposes, etc. So these are some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we'll have to explore. There's no turning back, but there are ways in which we have to figure out how to adapt them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And now, just before I introduce Al, just want to say thanks to the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean for hosting us, for supporting us with this forum today, the British High Commission, the VM Group, and United Nations Jamaica. Al Edwards, CEO, Our Today.
Hello, good evening. Artificial intelligence, a threat to journalism. That in itself is a conundrum. The central tenet of journalism is truth, human truth, but yet that truth is disseminated by something artificial. Think about that for a minute. So it strikes at the heart of what we do as journalists. But at the same time, if you think about it, we didn't stick to the quill in the era of the typewriter. Neither did we cling to the typewriter in the era of laptops and desktop computing. The inexorable march of technology and humanity moves on. But there are some lessons we have to learn. Over the last quarter of a century, I think social media had a debilitating impact on journalism. In newsrooms today, a lot of journalists, particularly younger people who grew up in the era of the social media, their reference point is social media. Case in point, I don't know if anyone saw a story this week where a young lady literally decimated a business, South Avenue Grill. Anybody saw that story? Right. And what prevailed? Ultimately, the truth. That's what prevailed, right? So we have to really address this. What is real? What is journalism? What makes a good writer? And that's essential. Now, also, I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to see an AI-generated interview with Joe Rogan and Donald Trump. Did anyone see that? Right. Now, think about the consequences and ramifications of that. Say, for instance, in Jamaica, you had something generated with an interview with Andrew Holness, or for some matter, a business leader, Michael Lee Chin, and they turned around and said, hey, I never said that. What does that mean for media houses? Do media houses face lawsuits? So, in the advent of artificial intelligence, we will have to redefine our libel laws. What does that mean? How do we go about our business? As it pertains today, some of the major media houses, for instance, the BBC, they have an AI platform called Juicer. Bloomberg has something called Cyborg. IBM has something which can do opinion pieces called Project Debater. Phenomenal technology. But that, as Jovan said, that technology has to be undergirded by the way we manage that technology. How do we use it? What are we trying to accomplish? In a Jamaican perspective, one of the things I fear is that we will naturally go to say we want to reduce our fixed costs, right? So when I started out, we had a newsroom of about 80 to 100, 120 people on occasion. That would be, today, that's cannot be considered. We're facing reduced advertising revenue, operating costs are higher. It's a shrinking business we're in. Some of us in the business want to see journalists prosper. We do not want to see, we want to see young people come in, join the profession. Right? Make a career of it. Base your life around it. Prosper from it. And it's something that we haven't done very well. And we need to do that well. So on the one hand, as I said, it's a conundrum. On the one hand, we need tools to make it a better profession. At the same time, we don't want to hurt ourselves. We don't want AI to really decimate the business. We've seen it. We've seen it with social media. What is truth? We've seen the impact of that. Elections. We live in an age now where a president will say to you, hey, the election was stolen from me. You can put out any information. That information can be manipulated. Now, it's often said that a great editor has the ability to sort the wheat from the chaff. That skill is going to be called upon even more so now. With the advent of AI. because you have to sort it out. You have to be able to decide what is real and what is not. And a real editor is going to look for some soul from his writers, or her, pardon that. But yeah, you're going to be looking for the soul writer, which is a human experience. If a young reporter comes to you and gives you copy, and you could tell straight away, hey, that's really you. And you don't want it to be a reflexive nature where, oh, I'm going to put it through ChatGPT, or I'm going to run it through a software. You're really looking for unique content. That's what you're ultimately looking for, both as editors and as media operators. And that's your unique selling point, because at the end of the day, it's still a business. You have to sell content, and you have to demarcate yourself from the competition. So you have to figure that out. So I would posit that AI is a tool to be used. But George mentioned earlier on about the movie AI. I'm probably a little bit older. I can go far back as to 2001: A Space Odyssey. One of the things that was really fearful, the two movies that really brought out fear in me as a young boy was The Exorcist and that movie. There's a scene in there where there's a computer called Hal. And there's an astronaut, and the astronaut says to Hal, open the pod door. There's no response for a minute. And Hal says to him, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. Couldn't control it, right? And it was a point made earlier this week by Geoffrey Hinton, when he says, if you start, it's a threat to humanity if you have things smarter than you, threatening your existence. So there are things that we have to put in place. We have, as Jovan said, we have to put in guardrails, but we have to use it effectively. As I said, one of my greatest fears in Jamaica is we don't want it to harm the industry. We want to encourage the next generation of media practitioners, journalists, and we want to make them thrive. We don't want to see the industry contract as a result of AI, because it's a business. And media owners will say, well, why do I need 20 reporters when I can have 6 with AI software? Think about it. Because business dictates, always. We're talking about earnings reports, shareholders. They're all looking for that, particularly with the bigger entities, right? The small players, niche players, they may revert back to original journalism to differentiate themselves. But at the end of the day, it's a business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Al. Thank you very much. Thank you to my 4-strong panel. Just a couple questions from me to prompt the conversation, and then of course I'll turn it over rather quickly because we're running heavy on time given how late we started. I just want to read a statement to form the basis of the discussion point right here. And the statement reads, generative AI is already used widely, from powering psychotherapy chatbots to generating medical images. If it can assist doctors in clinical settings and patient care, surely it can aid journalists. Large language models like GPT-4 have been trained on humanity's entire written canon. They, the literature says, are practically engineered to help writers. So I'm saying that to ask the panel for a declaratory statement at this point. At this point, things can change. A declaratory statement on AI as the tool to enhance journalism, or that which triggers, or that which is the death knell for journalism. I want that to be declared by each person here, and then of course we go to the floor. Jovan, you want to go first? Well, go first, man.
Well, let me disagree with it. There's no death knell to journalism here. There's no death knell to journalism. As I said before, technological change, journalism thrives on technological change. And once the fundamentals are bolstered and remain as the basis of fact-checking, verification, truth, fairness, then everything else will have to fall in line to that. It will enhance, if used appropriately, the work of journalists.
All right, so I've asked the question open-ended. I'm not taking a position. The position to take is for my panelists. I just want to point out that death can represent itself in many ways. You can asphyxiate and die, you can explode and die, you can drain away and die. And I saw dying in journalism firsthand in October 2008. Was that the election when Obama beat Romney? 2008, yes, yeah. November 2008, right. So I was in the US covering the election build-up period. And we did a tour of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Huge operation. So I wanted to picture a building as big as the Gleaner Company's building on North Street. That's what the Philadelphia Inquirer occupied. And I wanted to keep the Gleaner building in your mind and imagine staff at the Gleaner only on one floor. So there's no concession. I know you have people who are tenants and other things there. Just picture the Gleaner building, but the number of staff can hold on one floor. And they're not even sitting close to each other. There are huge gaps between them. That's what the Philadelphia Inquirer was. And what killed Superman again? The kryptonite to the Superman that was the Philadelphia Inquirer was the internet. And so we were given a tour. We were told by one of the founders that, boy, we had people on each floor. It was a beehive of activity. For those of you who know your US journalism, you know that that's a huge operation in its heyday. It was reduced to people on one floor, spread out, because the internet and what the capabilities were in terms of producing content had made most jobs redundant in the truest sense. So that was how death was represented in that way. So I just put that to stack the question on either side. So death knell, Al, or enhancer?
George, you make an excellent point. I say this is definitely the Grim Reaper. For the reasons I underlined earlier, it's a business operating costs, particularly in economies like where we're based in, right? You're seeing it right now. They're going to be looking to reduce operating costs. And it is the Grim Reaper, no question about it. Because you can probably do more content with less, right? And also as well, you don't have people, I'm sick, I need to feed the baby today, I can't do this, I bucked my toe on the TV, oh, there's a show on Netflix, what they call it, beef, I need to see. You don't have to contend with all that. It's just sterile, dispassionate, operational.
Dr. Mansingh, you're next.
I would say enhance. And I also want us to think about that. What do you really mean by media houses? Because there's so many different kinds of media that is there now. Some of it is not even true, or the facts are not true. So we have been dealing with the issue of not having the right facts in media, in certain kinds of media, for a little bit now. So, and something that Joanne had spoken about, that personalization for consumers is what people are going towards. But that creates an echo chambers and it creates its own issue in the society. So enhance, and enhance, I think, certain kinds of journalism, but it could work in a negative way for some other kinds, where there is more opinion and perspectives which are being thrown at you. Now, one thing to remember is when, about sources that would come from these AI tools. Think of all the data in the world that is put in a box and really shake it around and you try and see which words go together. That's what a predictive model is. That's what AI is doing. So does it even make sense sometimes? You don't even know that as yet in this current version.
Thank you for that. So I just checked myself to ensure that I'm keeping within the theme for this evening, and I am keeping within the theme. So there's a point I want to make on something Jovan mentioned, but of course I have to ask Adrian first to comment on death knell or enhancer.
Sure. We're at the crossroads. Yeah, I want to be dramatic when I said that. All right, so I'm on the fence, and the reason I'm on the fence is these models are being created by a tech company thousands of miles away, and I don't know. We generally know how they're created, but we don't know the data sets they're using exactly. We don't know how they're using it, right? So technically journalism, the future of journalism could really be in the hands of Google right now, or OpenAI more specifically, right? And a novel I like to think of is Fahrenheit 451. So this world where basically they burn books, firemen burn books because you don't have books. And the whole purpose of being a human is to ingest the content that the state has presented to you. So there's no independent news or independent source. And one way is we use GPT and other large language models to generate content to fuel our most basic desires. So clickbait in the form of articles and videos and stuff like that, because it's generated videos already. So the quality is down, IQ goes down because we're just ingesting for ingesting's sake to make us buy stuff. So it's about basically economical turnover, right? Or the other way is actual enhancing, where we're running out of data for the models to train. We're reaching that point already. We need new data. So we actually need journalists to create more thought-provoking content, because the AI needs thought-provoking content to get more intelligent. So you could literally have a journalist writing an article about rubber ducks in an amazing way, and that same data in some abstract way is being used to train a surgeon and to make him save a life, which is technically possible because, like Dr. Mansing said, all the data is kind of just sprinkled around and mixed up, so we don't know exactly how. So think about languages that are long lost. There's value in those languages. There's a language where only a few hundred people speak it, and they do mathematics in a different way, and it potentially, their way of adding and subtracting and doing arithmetic may actually be better for computers and may make computers better. How are we doing that? We're using AI models to bring back those languages. So I feel like journalists aren't just valued in terms of presenting actual news and informing people. They're actually going to be creating content to make these models better. So there can be that symbiotic relationship. But we're at the fence right now, and it really depends on how the large companies. And that's why we need local AI companies like Startup. I'll have to plug myself right there if anybody's interested, getting involved, reaching out with the free training. End of my sponsor.
All right, I see Al wanting to come. Just before you dip back in again, Al, I just want the audience to recognize that there's a natural difference that emerges in the positions taken by Jovan, the journalist, and Al, the business owner. Yeah? And if Jovan sat in Al's seat, I think he'd have Al's perspective. Yeah?
But make payroll every month.
Yeah, not to devalue Jovan's position any at all, because he makes valid points. But hold on, before you come, Al, I want to say this. So Jovan and I had a very interesting discussion this morning. And I was saying to him that I've been thinking of AI as perhaps the greatest equalizer in journalism in ever. And he said, what do I mean? So I said, okay. If you have, and Dr. Mansing said we need to, open our minds to what a media house is. So not forget media house, just something or someone doing journalism. If I have run a small operation, so I have 1 room or 2 rooms, I have computers, and maybe I have 1 person working with me, or I'm alone, I can do what the powerful RGR Cleaner Communications Group does as a matter of course with certain things. For instance, analysis of the published estimates of expenditure, that big yellow book, that it is so difficult to get information from for ordinary journalists, which is why you have specialists who handle that book. The Ministry of Finance is advanced enough nowadays to have that electronically, yeah? So the various heads for the various ministries, departments, and agencies, it's there. So you can go online and find it. If I plug that into my AI, I can, using the data, create information that then generates a story for me and my standalone entity that I can publish after editing, that it now puts me on an even keel with the Gleaner, who has the big names that they have, RJ Gleaner Communications Group, the big names that they have in business journalism who are producing the stories for them. I, with my AI tool, can produce a story. So Jovan clapped back and said, well, yeah, but on the back end, the editing is going to be an issue. And I said, yes, that may be so, but if the individual has the skills, he's also a good, or she's also a good business editor, but they didn't have the time to go through that big book and to analyze all that data and to crunch and to synthesize and to produce the stories. AI does that for them, and then all they have to do, rather than a 4 or 6 hour slog to lift the stories from the estimates, it now becomes a 45-minute to 1 hour exercise to edit and post. And in that way, AI is such an awesome equalizer potentially. Yeah? So that's something we were sparring over earlier. That's what he mentioned. I'm coming to Al and then to you. So just wait a little bit. I'll went first. So Al?
George, absolutely brilliant, mate. Spot on. Spot on. And I come from it from the perspective of a journalist owner. I spent decades as a journalist, US, UK, Norway, Russia, come to Jamaica, and I spent more than 2 decades as a journalist in Jamaica, and now I'm a media owner. Why? For precisely the reasons you outlined. It's an equalizer. You can build a business with less people. I don't have a newsroom of more than 70 people, 80 people. I don't have those high operating costs. I don't have those high fixed costs, right? What I've got to concentrate on is variable costs. But just to Adrian's point, and he made a fantastic point, think about it. In the age we live in today, we've got Mark Zuckerberg, we've come up in the Facebook era. Now we've got Elon with Twitter. They don't say they're publishers. They don't. They don't claim to be in the publishing business, but they disrupt the business. All right? They've destroyed the business. Now, when you speak to someone, we did a project called Loop at Digicel, and that project was started because Dennis O'Brien at the time said, listen, you can do news on a digital platform. But the fact of the matter is you can't monetize it effectively because all the money is generated by Facebook, right? It's a disruptor, but they don't claim, and as he says, there's no trickle-down effect for the economy. There's no base in here. You can't really, they just come in, take the revenue, and as we say, they don't business, they've gone. But they do not claim to be publishers. They do not claim to be in the business of journalism, right? So that's really what it is, and he speaks to your point, George, and you're spot on.
Jovan,
Absolutely.
Jovan, I give you 3 minutes, and then I go to the audience.
Yes, thank you.
As much as 3 minutes. You don't have to take all of it, yeah?
So to your first point, I do concede that yes, there are benefits. It would be foolhardy to argue that there are not. And to the extent that you have a small media entity with capacity constraints, they can leverage the benefits of AI. And the large media houses, like the Gleaner, would also do the very same thing, to plug the estimates of expenditure into the very AI. Because guess what it would do? Which is the extension of the argument, which raises a challenge for the smaller media houses to a certain extent. When I plug that in and I'm able to break the story and get something out very quickly, that $1 trillion budget has been tabled, what people want next, how the budget is affecting their lives. In other words, the person who lives in Westmoreland or up in my community, Red Hills in Northern Clarendon, how does $10 allocated to irrigation impact the farmers there? What is it? Where are the gaps? Those stories need to be told. So to the extent that we are able to incorporate AI into the news gathering process, it then forces the journalists and forces the media houses to invest in getting to the impact of the very things that that you generate through, which the AI can't generate because it can't tell us what Miss Mac thinks or feels. We have to go down there to talk to the producers, the players in the industry, and get their views for them to give us an analysis on the particular budget numbers. Then we're able to chat, as journalists, can question the minister to say, Minister, this is what has happened and how your budget does not appear to address these kinds of issues. One last thing. I still think you need to unpack death knell in relation to your first point. Because, you know, I think in the Bible we say we're in the midst of death, we're in life. I'm turning it around, sort of. Because when we have structural changes in technology and therefore journalism, new jobs are created. New jobs for journalists are created. And that cannot be left out of the argument for death. So there may be some traditional roles that will have to be, that will have to be recast or augmented.
Or die.
I'm waiting for your definition of die or death. But I'll stop there.
I hear you. Dr. Mansing?
I always used to think that I grappled with the difference between a reporter and a journalist. And reporter to me is somebody who's just reporting on the events that happened, and journalist is someone who's connecting the dots, which is what Joanne spoke about, connecting the dots. I think connecting the dots in a local context is critical. And I don't know how useful AI will be able to do that. And that aspect of connecting the dots, making a story, you can do proofreading, you can get captions and all from AI. But from the local concept of how it benefits society, the local society becomes critical. And I think that will be important.
All right, thank you very much. Let me invite the audience in now for 15 minutes, and then we can go home. There's a microphone there. Maya first? Yes. May it please you to. She has to use a microphone, right, Avan? Yes. Yes. So may it please you, Ms. Chung, to go up there.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be a part of this discussion. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Maya Chung, PBCJ. We have been speaking about a topic that is very fear-inducing, right? There's nothing that has been said on the panel that is not correct, because when George placed it on death knell or positive catalyzer, I'm improvising, which thing do we know in Earth that is one-faceted? It's gonna be a bit of both. Now, there is something that Adrian, I think, brought up. Did I get the name right? Yes. AI grooming. So we're talking about costs, we're talking about libel laws. AI, media is one of the greatest socializers of the modern age. I didn't hear anybody say that. If AI is a reporter, it doesn't connect the dots. We're socializing people to think, feel, believe. That's very dangerous. What I'm hearing, though, is like we are just floating like that feather in Forrest Gump, and we don't have dominion. Why aren't we developing software that is attentive to us and not escalating beyond us because they're not developing themselves? We talk as if we are just, we have dominion. Cut the coat to fit what we need. Now, you may have heard of Veronica Guerin. Yeah. Has anybody heard of Veronica Guerin? I grew up on that. And it was terrifying. A journalist,
Irish reporter, yes.
You would know. And Haley Joel Osment struck a chord with me in Steven Spielberg's, right. Veronica Guerin was killed because she was determined as a journalist not to have her neighborhood in Ireland. She was shot in this gun down. It was vicious. I'm talking to you guys, I'm getting cold bumps. When you look at somebody developing technology, this is a global issue. This is not a Jamaican issue. It's not CARICOM. It is how we got together as the WHO to look at COVID. The law says we create technology that goes here, and unless a human person modifies it, Hal can't tell you same now open the door. You mad?
Let me ask Adrian. Thanks, Maya, to just respond to.
You
have a last point?
I have a last point, yeah. The distortion that we're talking about and the fear, we're in the nascent stages. So people are actually believing what a bot is reporting. No critical thinking, no analytics. And so people are now, more than ever, with the best technology, like a candle in the wind. We're going here, we're going there, we're going all over the place because it seems credible. I see YouTubers, and I'm reporting. A YouTuber is not a reporter. You know how I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I placed these things in front of the panel. It was excellent. I was very educated.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
PBCJ people.
Thank you for that. So I asked the two experts on the panel where the computing and so forth is concerned, Adrian and Dr. Mansing, to respond.
Okay, thanks for that. So when it comes to what we're doing, so we are working on things. We're creating more representative data sets. We're reaching out to entities and organizations so they understand the risks and where they have control and where they don't currently have control. But we definitely need the government involved in the process to really push it. Need jurisdiction, like regulation, laws involved in it, because a lot of people don't understand the tools, but they're using it on a daily basis now, as if they understand it. So it's very easy to manipulate them, right? What you said in regards to the grooming component, same thing. So, okay, so how I like to think of it now is, would you entrust your life to a stranger, right? Would you like do that? Would you go to a random person and ask them, oh, I have this report due in 10 minutes. If I fail, I have to write a report for me, right? That's what people are doing right now with ChatGPT. They're entrusting their business, they're entrusting their lives, decisions to something that they don't fully understand, right? And they're doing it freely and happily to do so, because the incentive is I'm saving time and it doesn't cost me much of anything to utilize it. So a big thing is, the quote was, show me an incentive and I'll show you basic an outcome, right? I think it's Drucker said that. I think it's the same thing with us, especially in what's been in small countries where we don't have much resources placed on research and development and academia. So yeah, need more money pushed in academia to control these things, because we are the people that are pushing the limits to understand the worst case, right? So we need the government involved, we need public-private partnerships, we need money and funding behind it so that people really want to pursue these issues and put safety nets in place.
Dr. Mansing, picking up from what Maya said, let me ask you it this way. Do you foresee a mass rewrite of data protection laws right around the world, copyright legislation, and even cybercrimes legislation by virtue of where we are headed fast?
Absolutely. And if you remember, I spoke about with new technology, there have to be new responsibilities. I know UN has a charter for AI. I think there is time to now look at that and review it to see what needs to be really done for it. And this is not just in media. I mean, you spoke of it even about socializing and working with these tools. I'm a software programmer. My job is in danger. I'm a teacher. My job is in danger. You know, this ChatGPT can write code. Now, I am thinking the next semester when I'm starting to teach programming, how do I groom my students with it? I have to make it as an assistive, as a teaching tool, versus they see something as finding a shortcut to use. So that becomes very important, the responsibilities and how we are then putting those responsibilities into actions, both as, as professionals and as regulators.
Thank you. Sir, may you identify yourself and proceed?
Yes. Yes, I'm Roger Copeland, and counseling young people. So what I would like to ask the panelists, do you know anything about control organizations put in place? I've been hearing about the 5th generation tech act, where some governments are trying to regulate the AI. And also, we keep hearing in Jamaica from about January about ChatGPT, but I am also hearing about other apps such as Socrates AI, Google AI. Could you respond?
Star Apple. Adrian, it's you.
Yeah, so controls, it is very, very hard to control what's going on because you're creating a system where it's developing and learning. The whole point of AI is to learn, right? First thing, so yeah, anything you don't know, probably not going to be useful for control in 2 months. Second thing, a lot of creative people who are willing to dedicate their time are basically rebuilding these things from scratch because there's a big open source push. So the idea is democratize the technology, right? So right now, a scammer, I won't name any parish to make it seem like I'm going after any parishes, a scammer could go online right now and with a couple hours and less than $40 US, impersonate you, your voice, how you look, how you talk, your mannerisms, just based on publicly available data on Instagram, and then scale this to hundreds of persons. They could do that right now very quickly, and all they need is just the willingness to do it. So there are free open source versions of all of these things that you can download on the computer right now. I won't name them, but there are tools that we're currently experimenting right now where literally if you want something done, you just tell it what to do. So it's basically a ChatGPT for ChatGPT. You don't even need to say, so I want to become the best influencer or whatever, and it will just go online and figure things out and create a web page for you and talk to the right people and find people to follow and all that stuff. And it's moving at an incredibly fast pace, and we can't stop it, but what we can do is we can regulate how the data is used and make sure that we're represented, because that's a big thing. Our data, Jamaican data is in there, but it's not a lot of it, so it's hard for us to be represented.
Let me hear Al.
Yes, Maya, you said two vital things. One, we have to have dominion over this. It's absolutely vital. Think about it, Gunjan, you made the point. Let's just tarry a little while away from journalism. Only a few years ago, we talked about BPOs and how all the young people had to get jobs in BPOs. AI destroyed that. Talk about Grim Reaper, that's over. Anyone tells you otherwise, in the funk. I'm showing my age with that line, right? But it destroyed it. And as far as the industry is concerned, you raised another point. We've got to get people in the industry to focus around critical thinking, how you apply it. But there's also a challenge, and I say to my staff too, I'm not going to be displaced by a computer or by AI, but that's just maybe arrogance. I'll find a way, because at the end of the day, I have to revert to my natural skills. Jovan made a point with business reporting. So did George about the estimates. We have to break that down. He would recall, even at the Gleaner, you get the thick yellow book, Jesus, Garfield breathing down your neck, you want to produce 2 stories for business, right? All right, you got deadlines to meet. You're right, that application helps you. We have to have dominion, you're absolutely right.
I hope, sir, that you're covered by the answer from Adrian. Yes, sir.
Good night. My name is Dwayne Little. I'm an educator. Quickly, I just want to thank you for having the forum. I mean, it really brought to light, as it pertains to journalists and these technologies, the whole issue of job loss, bias, and things to do with the legality issues. But I think in terms of I just want to focus on the job loss issues. I think journalists have you may have a head start, because in terms of the technologies that Jovan spoke to, how it aided journalists in the past and presently, I think COVID-19 helped to kind of give us a sense of how we don't necessarily have to be in one place to work. And I think an organization like the Press Association could jump ahead by not only talking amongst journalists themselves, but including people like Dr. Mansing and also economists to figure out new business models where people could sort of use these technologies. So for example, in the print media, I'm thinking that AI is going to get rid of whoever writes the obituaries. I think first and foremost, that's going to go. I'm just speculating. I'm not a journalist myself, but I'm just thinking
You are very right, sir.
Yeah, just
You're
looking
very
at
right.
it from what you guys have said, the person who write the obituary is going to go. But if people have laptops, if people have printers, if people have powerful smartphones and so forth, and have a good internet connection, I think they could still work as a media house, in quotation marks, just that they're not working in the same place. They probably meet in a place at periods, or if there are particular projects that they have to work on. And maybe the new model may be that persons like yourself, to form a committee to figure out how do we push for stronger internet connectivity, how do we push for having safe data, and also probably turning some of the old media organizations into archives where the journalists source the archive, write the stories, and then take it from there. Maybe that's something to think about and to speculate on from a committee level to kind of trip what may come in terms of job loss.
Thank you very much for that. Al?
Yeah, you made, again, an excellent point. I mean, in our time, you think about it, and some of us are still we're in the newspaper business, but even in our time, most people won't do that now. You have a generation who consume news on their handsets. What do you think the implications of AI is going to be to that? It's going to take you one step beyond. You're already seeing Elon and people saying, look, put a pause on this. Don't go beyond GPT-4. So the way we distribute news, the way we do that, AI is going to have an impact on that. Now, we all know you can't really, the genie's out of the bottle. Right? You can't slow it down, but how can you get dominion over it? How can you utilize it? Right? That's really what the question is.
All right, two persons to close, the PAJ president and my friend.
Right, this question is for Dr. Mansing and for Mr. Dunkley. If AI and particular software like ChatGPT and so on rely on data which is already out there, can we technically restrict, say, encrypt data and also literally take data down from off the internet and thereby crippling or at least making it not as effective as it currently is? Is that a possibility? And two, I would say to journalists that I think the stories about the human endeavor, the human experience, I think it'd be a little difficult in some cases for AI to do those stories. I still think that those are some stories that you can do as journalists, which are focusing on the human spirit that AI just won't ever be able to get to them, at least not now. So those are my 2 points.
I always like to tell everyone there was this movie, Social Dilemma, in which there was a lovely quote which said that if something is free, that means you are the product. That is something which we all have never remembered, and we have put everything about ourselves in everywhere, on social media, various websites. So when you're talking about taking down data, remember the common crawl that I told you is one of the data sources? For years, it has been going around the internet. That's what it's doing. It's crawling and getting all the data that is there in archives. There are archives of internets, timestamps. So even if you take it down now, it's there already gone. So I don't know where you're going to go and get back. So just remember that. If something is free, that means you are the product. Don't ever forget that.
Adrian, anything to add to that? Quickly.
Adding to that, Wayback Machine, anybody knows that website? Yes. So you can go on it and see what Netflix looked like 10 years ago. So yeah, anything you put online is stuck there forever. Perpetuity is going to outlive you and your grandkids. You'll be embarrassed or you'll be proud, whatever it is. So we're not in a position right now where you can do that. Quick example would be the music industry just saw, the fake songs of Rihanna and Drake and Kanye going around. So they immediately hit down and said, all right, we're going to sue anybody. And we're tracking and monitoring. And they said, you cannot use our music for these purposes. So there are ways of controlling it because the data is really the food that AI is really eat right now. there are other approaches, but that's really where a lot of the value is coming from.
And
So you
our
can restrict things, but you can't completely get rid of them.
And our last contributor for the evening.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Godiva, founder of Steamhouse. We actually work in this field quite a bit, and so it's really lovely to be here and just listening to the panelists. So I'll just shoot with two questions. One, there's been quite a bit of talk of critical thinking skills being part of the core skills that we are going to be learning or making sure that we enhance, especially given that AI, or machine learning rather, is very good at two things: pattern matching and prediction. So it's needed for us to go further in this regard. So as journalists, especially, who more or less curate the experiences of our news outlets, how do you see yourself playing a role in helping to develop skills beyond critical thinking, as well as critical thinking, to ensure that we are using data ethically and the consumption of it is not in a way that disadvantages our own citizens? So that's the first question.
Hold on, that's Jovan's question. Make a note, yes?
All right. Secondly, I'm very curious. I'm putting up my notes here.
Second question is Al's question, but go ahead.
I think it might very well be. So Dr. Mansing would have mentioned the idea of crawling. Data does not exist in a vacuum. It's out there on the internet. Reddit itself has basically made mention that they will not be allowing tools like ChatGPT to crawl their website for data. I'm wondering, what is the position of news houses or media houses when it comes to similar things? And also, do you intend to have technology integration of these advanced tools being a core part of your operations?
Told you it was Al's question. Yeah, so Joe was on you first and then Al.
Right. Thank you. So a few things. How do you, you're saying, how do you ensure that you have the critical skills to ensure that you're able to navigate the space? And there are a number of things one can do. And this is for the media organizations, news organizations. What it is: get your staff to upskill, provide the enabling environment for them to improve their skills, I don't like the word exploit in this context, but to exploit the technology. That's very important. There's also a role for the training institutions. In Jamaica, we have the Northern Caribbean University, UTEC, Caramac at the UWI, and others. Their curriculum, UCC, of course, right? Their training programs have to become relevant to the times to ensure that there's a supply to the media institutions or to the media organizations, as well as for entrepreneurial journalists as well, who want to do things on their own. Those are two major ways I think you can ensure that the skills are generated.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Al?
It's also incumbent on managers, editors, to really mentor and spend time with their reporters. You know, encourage that critical thinking. You know, show them examples, and you even more so now. I think you have to do that. I think that's vitally important. As to your point about incorporating technology, as a business, as I said earlier, operating costs. So whatever can help you reduce those operating costs, get efficiency, maximize. You're seeing that AP, for instance, has 3,700 pieces out, all based on algorithms, right? He wrote a number of great stories, and I'm going to go there on stocks and securities. You're going to be in an era whereby you're going to see a lot of readership. He's generated a lot of readership. You put it in AI and say, listen, I need 15 stories in stocks and securities to churn it out. More readers, more revenue, your business model works. That's really what we're looking at, and that's really what we're going to see happening.
Thank you very much, Al. I did say the last comment was coming from you, but Dr. Mansing, we have to, it's 8:23, we have to boogie.
It's the critical thinking question. So as an academic, I have to respond to that because that's what we focus on in teaching. I think everyone has to evolve just now, even universities, institutions, learning institutions, because we focus on various things like knowledge, skills, and competencies when we are designing curriculum. And critical thinking is always at the center of it. Now with ChatGPT, even that is threatened. So how are we going to evolve? So now it's for the society, collectively to think, how is the education system going to evolve? How is the media houses going to evolve? What are the roles, responsibilities in this new world that we are living in? So it is, every revolution brings about a change, and that's the change we all need to now make. We need to make that change.
All right, that brings us to an end. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Give ourselves a round of applause. Thank you. I want to thank the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, British High Commission, the VM Group, and United Nations. I want to thank Deputy British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Daniel Shepherd, Dr. Anna Paolini, Director of UNESCO Caribbean, Milton Walker, the PHA President, Dr. Gunjan Mansingh, Head of the Department of Computing at the UWI Mona, Adrian Dunkley, the founder of Star Apple AI. You notice I pronounce it like a Jamaican Star Apple AI. Jovan Johnson, Senior Staff Reporter at The Gleaner, and the gentleman Al Edwards, CEO of Our Today. I just realized something that I did in my brief remarks say that that AP, Associated Press, that they've been using AI since 2014 to do their business things. I can't ever recall reading the AP and seeing them declare that this is an AI-generated article. I have a problem with that. I feel away. You understand? So, so for us now, it is how do we disclose? And you can just imagine someone in rural Jamaica saying, and I hope you understand, and Dr. Paolini understands, saying, me no want a robot write my news. You understand? So that's something that we'll have to deal with. Anyway, thank you very much for coming, and thank you to those on the stream. And we certainly hope that we would have informed you and we would have seeded your arguments in the future about something that is constantly evolving. Thank you very much. Good evening. We have refreshments outside. Oh, I don't need a mic. We have refreshments outside, please. We're inviting you. Dr.